And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host Laraib, and a very special guest joining us, our good friend, multi-time appearance on the podcast, my cousin Andrew Ward. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
What's up? I'm Andrew Ward. Very excited for the podcast today, guys.
As we have been excited this whole week. We are Super Bowl week, obviously the biggest game of the season. We already dropped our first episode on Tuesday, so if you haven't checked that out, huge betting preview. We had our friends Jack and Lucas on where we talked all things props, things to bet on, things to look at for the game. Really, really interesting watch. I would recommend going to check that one out as well. This one, we were focusing on big storylines from the game, macro view, legacy, things on the line, what's at stake in this game in terms of only this game and also for whole careers can be defined by this game and this game alone. And we have a bunch of extra storylines, NFL things that one of us will be bringing up to the table. Laura, how are we doing and are we ready to get into this episode?
Of course, it's great to have longtime friend and longtime appearance Andrew Ward on the podcast. He always just brings an extra element, something that's out of the box, out of the picture that a lot of people don't think of. There's an extra perspective here on the First and Goal podcast. Why don't we go ahead and start off today with something a little bit more tame? We're going to talk about, Mahomes potentially getting his third ring and what that means for his legacy. Brady with 7 and now Mahomes in just his 6th year or 7th year getting his third ring. We already know he has a bunch of the regular season stats to back it up. But if he keeps on backing up rings like this year after year, it looks like he might be the GOAT.
Yeah, potential third ring. He's already appeared in 3 Super Bowls. This will be his fourth Super Bowl. He's never missed an AFC championship his entire career. In all the 6 years he's played, he's only lost 5 playoff games. He's already won 17. I believe that's the number. I don't have it in front of me. But you compare, and the thing we're talking about now is Mahomes is undoubtedly the best quarterback in the league in terms of a legacy standpoint, accomplishments, and obviously talent. What we're saying, he's back in this game for a reason. So at this point, you're not comparing him to other quarterbacks in the league. You're comparing him to history. You're comparing him to ghosts, as some might call it. And when you look at the top, you see Tom Brady. And when you compare the start of their careers, Tom obviously won 3 straight Super Bowls in the early 2000s, but the way in which he did it, he didn't win a Super Bowl MVP during that stretch, and he was never really the guy. He became the guy and went on to win 4 more Super Bowls with the Patriots and one with the Buccaneers. But Mahomes, since he's entered as the starter and won his first MVP in 2018, has been the unquestioned guy in Kansas City. He is the reason they won. He has won the first 2 Super Bowl MVPs for this team. So a ring and a Super Bowl MVP firmly has him in the fast track to be the GOAT of NFL quarterbacks and all NFL players, in my opinion. And if you ask me, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, Andrew, I believe as a talent, he is the best quarterback I've seen. And we're getting to a point now when watching him, and we'll talk about how it pertains to this game as well, where it seems like you can never bet against him.
Well, I honestly don't think that he's the best talent I've ever seen. Because, I mean, you go back to certain seasons for other quarterbacks, like you could say the 2011 Drew Brees was better. Or honestly, what year was that? 2013 Peyton Manning. But, I mean, he's doing it on a consistent basis at this point. So, I don't know, Laraib, on to you.
Well, the greatest quarterback that I've ever seen has to be y'all's New Orleans Saints starting quarterback for a long time, Drew Brees. Now, of course, he doesn't have the same number of Super Bowl appearances or wins or MVPs as Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. But what I saw out of that man, the most accurate throw of the football that I have ever witnessed. Now, you can tell me, Mahomes is more arm talent. He can throw the ball deeper down the field. He has, so far in his career, the better numbers. But what I've seen out of Drew Brees, I've stated it multiple times on this podcast. He is my GOAT of all time, GOAT quarterback, just because of his ability to throw the ball. His accuracy is on a different level from everyone else in the league. And just the way he distributed the ball in that New Orleans offense. If you had a defense like Mahomes did this year or like Brady did in all those years, like you talked about his earlier years, Lewis, where he wasn't the main guy. If you give Brees that type of system, that type of defense, we're talking about a completely different trajectory for Drew Brees. Now, you could say that for a lot of different quarterbacks. If they had, a top 5 defense every single year and they just did the bare minimum, they could take them to a Super Bowl. But Drew Brees, I believe in my heart, if he had something like that, he could have racked up easily 4 or 5 rings.
Yeah, well, and there is I wouldn't say this a counter argument because it's like, how do you prove against it? But Mahomes did enter a situation that was perfect for him. Obviously, Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach, we'll get to him in a little bit, but what Mahomes has been able to do, and even this season, like we talked about it, how we were very unsure of this team. And, after that loss against the Raiders on Christmas, it was like they just don't have the weapons. They don't have the offensive firepower. Mahomes can't lift this group. And then here we are back in the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes, and he's just continuing to figure out ways to win. And this is only his 6th year in the NFL. We're talking peak of his powers, Drew Brees, we're comparing him to at this point, which is insane to think about because Mahomes is not even 30 years old yet, and he's doing things that we're comparing him to legendary Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So this is just a huge thing for him. I think he's getting there, and a win. I don't think a loss here does much against him. You're playing a good team. It's the Super Bowl. You've gotten this team to this point. It won't diminish him. It takes a step back from catching a guy like Tom Brady in terms of achievements, but in terms of just solidifying himself as this era's QB1 at such a young age, and he still has so much left to go. This is a great start to a career and arguably one of the best starts. First 6 years in the NFL, I would take this over anything else. Anything else, Andrew, that you want to hit on about what this game will do for Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, to be fair, like this Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes has gotten to wasn't all that impressive. I mean, you had Josh Allen go out there and look like Laraib's guy, Justin Herbert, just choking in the clutch. And then you go and he goes up to Baltimore and plays a running back at quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, it really wasn't all that
The
impressive
MVP.
to me. All right, but was he really the MVP, guys? We know who the real MVP is, and that's Christian James McCaffrey. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Well, let's go ahead and pivot now because I brought up some of the supporting parts and what a Super Bowl will do for some of these guys. And I want to start here. Travis Kelce, very quietly, because he's not the dominating force. He doesn't have the super flashy plays that, a Gronkowski has, or Jimmy Graham, or some of these big highlight tight ends that we've watched in our lives. But very sneakily, he is second all time in postseason touchdowns, second in catches, second in yards, only to Jerry freaking Rice. He transcends tight ends come playoff time, and he's in a conversation with only the best of the best receiver threats of all time. And as a playoff weapon, him winning this would be also his 3rd Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. This would be a huge boost. And I personally think now, quarterbacks, I think Super Bowl wins are a little more important than other positions because quarterback has so much influence on how a game goes. For when you talk about like running backs, tight ends, receivers, winning isn't the biggest thing. The biggest thing is how you impact the game with, how you tilt a defense, things like that. But you have to give Kelce credit for what he is able to do, step his game up come playoff time and provide winning plays in huge moments. That I don't think this will change much for people because you win another game as a tight end, but a Super Bowl MVP potentially, I think not only is he the greatest tight end of all time, but he is in a conversation of one of the best just weapons in NFL playoff history, and the stats back it up. You seem to disagree, Andrew.
Yeah, he's not even the best playoff tight end of all time. We know who that is. It's Rob Gronkowski. And I mean, honestly, I would put another Chiefs tight end in front of him, not playoff wise, but just in his whole career wise, and that would be Tony Gonzalez.
That's fair, but can I ask, what's the distinction? Why are you taking those guys? Because the numbers favor Kelce in these spots.
Well, throughout all of Gonzalez's career, he has more yards than Kelce. I mean, Kelce's already talking about retiring. Plus, I feel like this Super Bowl he's gotten to, it's more of a publicity stunt for Taylor Swift, but we'll get into that later. I've got a whole segment on that I would like to talk about.
Well, why wait? What do you got? Let's get into it now.
All right, so basically, Taylor Swift is a psyop that's trying to get people to vote for Joe Biden. I think we all know this. Like the last election time, she was very, very vocal about voting for Joe Biden. All right, and her boyfriend Travis Kelce, my bad guys, is seen in many Pfizer commercials. He gained the nickname Mr. Pfizer by the infamous Aaron Rodgers, who is famous for choking in the playoffs to the 49ers. Main fact there. But being that as like Big Pharma is definitely supported by Democrats, we can also look, the Pfizer shout is also important because now we have to look at Damar Hamlin. All right. Many people say the vaccine was the cause of Damar Hamlin's death, and I think that was probably the case. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just hey, hold on. All right. Hamlin's sudden death on the field. It's obvious that Damar Hamlin died from the vaccine. So the NFL and the CDC were trying to cover it up. So Damar Hamlin definitely died, and he was cloned. All right. And because he was cloned, they've been trying to make him like the limelight of the entire season. So, like, I mean, you just look at comeback player of the year or that foolish play that they had, the fake punt in the playoff game against the Chiefs. It's just obvious that this entire season is chalked. If the Chiefs win, I'm never watching the NFL ever again.
Well, Andrew, I just want to ask you a quick question. So you're going about this whole vax thing. So are you currently vaccinated against COVID-19?
Oh, yes. And if I die of a heart attack, we know why, guys.
Okay, so real interesting point there from you. So because of all that drama and all of the meandering going around this double vax thing, Mr. Pfizer and Travis Kelce, so that knocks him down a tier in your eyes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I have a follow-up statement here. In terms of, I guess, this stage, this Super Bowl, would you argue that majority of the viewing audience is conservative?
No, not for the Super Bowl, but I would feel like the regular audience for the NFL is more conservative.
So wouldn't you think it's in the NFL's disadvantage to be pushing these things onto their audience? We saw what happened with Bud Light.
No, because money talks. Money talks.
Okay, and where follow the money? Where's the money at?
Taylor Swift. They get other people to start watching, and then they can just start pressing everything on these people. So.
Yeah, and I definitely want to add some validity to that statement, Andrew, because the NFL has made over $250 million from this whole Taylor Swift fiasco, you would call it.
Yeah.
Over $330 million. And then you talk about profits for the NFL. Of course, we look at the playoff game versus the Kansas City Chiefs against the Miami Dolphins that was streamed on Peacock, and the NFL sold those rights, Lewis, for over $120 million, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So money definitely talks for the NFL.
And I want to ask, because that was a very cold game. Was Taylor Swift in attendance for that game? Do we know?
Oh, yes. She was in attendance. She was just in a box. She could barely see. Oh, gosh, because the windows were frosted up.
Yeah, so that's a little interesting there because, a person of her stature going into that frigid temperature to endure that, maybe there is some shenanigans behind it, but as a man who might be picking the Chiefs in this game, we shall see.
Also, I would just like
I'll
to
take all the good favor I can get. What's up?
I would just like to point out that LeBron James killed Kobe Bryant.
Do you mind expanding on that statement?
So LeBron, when he came to LA, he realized.
All right, so our next segment we're gonna get into.
All right, fine.
He's sitting right here, by the way.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll focus NFL. Maybe we'll get into some basketball talk this year. Who knows? You can hop on for that. But let's pivot to the 49ers side of things because there's a lot riding on them now because they've been chomping at the bit for about, since 2019 when they first played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl to get back to this point. And it's been disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. Obviously, NFC Championship berths losing. We had the NFC Championship last season in which Brock Purdy gets hurt and they just get dogpiled by the Eagles. But they are back here on this stage facing a familiar foe. Laraib, I want to throw this at you. How big is this for Chiefs fans and for 49ers fans to finally get this win with this core?
Oh, this will be monumental for them. You talk about their first Super Bowl win this century, Lewis, and the biggest person this is going to go towards is Kyle Shanahan's legacy. Now, we'll talk about Andy Reid maybe a little bit later on about his third one here, but this will be Kyle Shanahan's first Super Bowl win if he's able to get it done. And you look at his other Super Bowl appearances, you talk about the huge loss when he was on the Falcons to the Patriots, one of the most memorable, the worst the best comeback of all time from the Patriots, and one of the most disappointing performances from Kyle Shanahan. And you think back to the last time these two teams played, where this 49ers team was up 10 points middle of the fourth quarter, and they somehow find a way to lose that game. And so a lot is riding on Kyle Shanahan in this game. You know, you think about his legacy, his father's legacy of already having won a couple of Super Bowls, and now it's on Junior to get it done here. And I think he will have the game plan to stop Patrick Mahomes in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. I think this is, because Shanahan has been heralded as his offensive genius for years with such a great system that wins you all these games. But the biggest stain on his legacy, not only that Falcon Super Bowl when he was the offensive coordinator, choking the 28-3 lead, was the fact that he's just never able to get it done in the biggest of stages. And this is his chance to prove that he is a winning football coach. I think we all here believe that he is a really elite level head coach in the NFL. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, people look at your resume and say, where's the ring? Where's the Super Bowl championship? And he has a chance here to prove that he is a Super Bowl winning level head coach. We saw Sean McVay as the young genius get his Super Bowl a few years ago. Now this is his chance to prove that he has always been that guy at the top, move over the older generation, and potentially surpass his father as a offensive guru here by elevating, Mr. Irrelevant as quarterback and potentially winning a Super Bowl with him, with his style, bringing in his type of players. So this will be huge for Shanahan. So I agree with you. He has the most to gain here. But I would argue another person might as well. Andrew, I want to throw this at you. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, has faced a lot of criticism. He is very relevant right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were starting in the Super Bowl. Faced a lot of, criticism this season of how much is it on him? How much is it the system? Shanahan, McCaffrey, how much credit can we give? Because he's at the top 5 in the MVP ballot. Both me and Laraib have disagreed in that. But I think me and Laraib both agree, or at least I'll say, that he is a good quarterback. I believe he is a top 15 to maybe 10 quarterback in the NFL based off the way he's been playing. So if he wins the Super Bowl, do you view him as a max level guy that you're going to pay going forward? Or how do you view Purdy after his Super Bowl win?
I mean, I would look at him like a max level player. I mean, to get to the Super Bowl is no easy feat. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo obviously did it with this almost exact same team, but he didn't have the stats that Purdy had this year. It seems that Purdy just has something about him that just he can get the job done when they need him to. He's not just a game manager, as Cam Newton would call him. But I mean, he's got the weapons now. He's got Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I honestly think that this game is going to be a bloodbath, and the 49ers are going to end up just
hold off there.
We'll
get your official pick in just a moment.
Well, I think everybody knows my official pick. Deebo, 19 Samuel.
I mean, we're looking at the Golden Gate Bridge behind you. So
I'm in San Francisco right now. Yeah.
Reporting live from their practice facility. So we appreciate that. Laraib, we heard what Andrew just said about what a victory would mean. Is he gets all this adulation first? Do you agree with that? And flipping it on its head, if he loses, but let's say he plays admirably, right? He doesn't get embarrassed on this stage. Why not still pay him because he got you all the way here? He surely, deserves something, right? What do you think?
No, I agree. If he has a solid performance in the game and it's not clearly his fault, he doesn't have 2 picks and 2 fumbles, and he clearly keeps you in this game against Patrick Mahomes, of course you bring him back. And there was an earlier guy that we were talking about on here, Lewis. Maybe you know his name, Tom Brady, who was maybe put in a similar situation where he's the backup, comes to the spotlight, and a lot of people say his defense carries him, the weapons around him offensively carry him, a la Randy Moss and Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. And then all of a sudden, later down in his career, he starts leading the team to victories because of all this ball knowledge he gained. So this could be a great stepping stone for Brock Purdy early in his career. And I can definitely see a world where he has a great game against a Chiefs defense, which we know can be sometimes a little blitz heavy. He finds an open man, lets his team do the work for him, and then he comes back right here next year for the 49ers. Now, the only scenario I see him not being the quarterback for the 49ers next year, I don't see a scenario for that at all.
No.
Unless he tears both his ACLs and, can never walk again. Maybe
That would
that's
suck.
Knock on
one
wood,
case.
Laraib. Knock on wood.
Maybe that's the only case I see that happening because he's proven a lot this year. Yeah, you and I both agree he's not and that shouldn't be in the MVP conversation, but he's played well enough this year and shown that he can thrive in this Shanahan system. And why go away from that? We saw this 49ers team try to draft Trey Lance, someone that was really raw, and Kyle Shanahan thought, I can morph this guy into something, but it just didn't work out. If you have the guy who's able to win you 12 games a year or more consistently, why would you want to move on from that?
Well, I want to say I'm going to take a little bit of the bad guy route here. I think no doubt whatever happens in this Super Bowl, he will be the starter come next season. There's no shot he won't. But these questions are going to keep lingering. And you brought up the Tom Brady trajectory. And boy, is that, the best perfect case scenario he could go. But there's been guys who have been to Super Bowls and even won Super Bowls, but that was the climax just because they were in a great situation at the right time. No one here thinks Purdy is the best player on their offense, probably not even the second, third, fourth, or fifth best player on this offense. And to say that we pay him top dollar money after this, regardless of the outcome, is a bit crazy in my opinion, because there's such a small sample size and he hasn't shown enough wow yet to really bring me to his side because of all the other guys. And I'm not saying get rid of everyone to prove throw Purdy out there with a bunch of bums and then we see if he can do it. No, obviously you want a good supporting cast, but if you're going to pay him top dollar money, you need to be 1,000,000% sure that he is top dollar worth it. And at this point, he is not. I would take about 10 guys over him right now, just based off arm talent, based off ability. Now, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles scored 40 points in the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of different ways his career can go. But I think short-term speaking, he is absolutely the quarterback next season and probably the season after that, Andrew.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like you just have to pay him. It's just what the NFL has gone into. Like, you look at quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, like he should not be getting paid all that money, but
can I provide the counter argument that Kyle Shanahan just picked up Brock Purdy off the turnip truck? Is there a chance that he can do it again and pick up another super cheap guy, throw him into the system, and run it back the same way? I mean, is that not a valid argument?
I don't think it works kind of like that. I mean, you look at Trey Lance and how he performed with the 49ers. It's not just like you just can throw some bum back there.
That's fair.
And like they can get you to the Super Bowl. I think Brock Purdy has done a phenomenal job, and if he wins the Super Bowl, he definitely deserves the money.
Well, I also want to say it's not like someone will poach him for the 49ers. We can say he's playing like a top 15 or top 10, but does he command that respect from other teams? Or other teams without a quarterback looking at Brock Purdy and saying, this is the guy we want to bring in? And so for that same exact reason where you're saying he doesn't deserve top dollar, well, he's not getting offered top dollar from other teams. So that also gives favor to the 49ers. Maybe you don't have to give him max. We can give him a little bit less. And if he feeds into that Brady mentality where, if I can take a little bit less and the 49ers can re-sign Christian McCaffrey to a deal, I mean, if I'm Brock Purdy, I'm fine with that. If I make, $10, $15 million less year and I get to keep Deebo Samuel as my wide receiver one, if I'm Brock Purdy, that's an ideal situation for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot to look into for the 49ers, but most importantly, it's this weekend. You win, you won't have to answer questions for a long time. So before we get into Andrew's pick, I want to do a little exercise with y'all. There's so much talent, so many all-pro, Hall of Fame caliber guys on both teams that I'm going to throw some names at y'all. And what a Super Bowl win guarantee this person a Hall of Famer. I'm going to go, I'm going to start with Andrew, then I'm going to go to Laraib. So, Andrew, would a Super Bowl win guarantee Travis Kelce a Hall of Fame spot?
I think he's already guaranteed a Hall of Fame spot at this point. But I mean, yeah, a Super Bowl win would help that.
Okay, Laraib, reigning defensive player of the year as we're filming this, Nick Bosa. Does this guarantee him a Hall of Fame spot?
Absolutely not. He had an awful year after being paid all that money this year. And I think even if he shows up in a huge Super Bowl performance like this, it's going to take a lot more years of some great production out of him to guarantee a Hall of Fame career.
But certainly on the right track.
That most definitely on the track, especially if it was a big game, kind of rebuild that name value that was kind of lost during this regular season.
Okay, Andrew, similar vein, two-time Super Bowl winner, maybe three. I don't know if he was on the first team. Chris Jones, would he be a three-time winner, Laraib? Do you know? Three?
Yeah.
So Chris Jones, if he has a big game and they win, does this guarantee him a spot potentially?
I would have to go back and look at his stats throughout all the seasons because I'm not necessarily quite sure, but I'm gonna have to say no to that. I mean, I feel like he hasn't like the Chiefs defense hasn't been the main reason why they've been winning all of these rings. So, but they have been very good this year. I'll give him that.
All right, and then an extremely intriguing one, Christian McCaffrey, Laraib. What do you think?
I think, yes, he has been the running back that's defined this generation ever since he got drafted into the league. There's been some good names, but when you think of the top of that list, I think Christian McCaffrey's right up there. And if he wills this 49ers team to a win, that hasn't been done in been a very long time. We talk about teams, not having to pay the running back position. And this could be the end of an era potentially with guys getting paid a lot of money at running back position. If he goes out there, he wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP. I think he's well on that way.
Yeah, and then real quickly, when you talk about defining era running backs, I would my mind just immediately went to Derrick Henry. But when you count up McCaffrey's scrimmage yard stats, all the touchdowns, everything he's been able to do on top of a Super Bowl and potential Super Bowl MVP, that is a pretty compelling case. And he might win Offensive Player of the Year. As we're filming this right now, the award show had just started, so we don't know exactly yet. Finally, Andrew, I'm going to throw you Kyle Shanahan.
Yes. I mean, I feel like he's just an offensive genius, an offensive mastermind, and the way he's influenced the game has just completely changed the way everybody plays. So yes, I would say this would cement him a Hall of Fame spot.
Yeah, it's very similar to the resumes of like Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, Mike Tomlin. As long as you get one and you have all these, a sustained success for a long time, and you'd kind of define an era of football, I believe that does deserve a Hall of Fame spot. All right, Andrew, we've come down to the moment. The floor is yours. Just solidify. Who are you picking in the Super Bowl, and what is your final score?
All right, so I mean, I am in San Francisco right now. I'm going to choose the San Francisco 49ers to win Super Bowl 58 against Taylor Swift's Chiefs. And the final score of the game will be 31-17.
Okay, so big win. Do you
Yep.
think it's like a late touchdown puts it away, or you say 49ers dominate throughout?
A late touchdown puts it away at the end.
And who
Okay,
was
so
your Super Bowl MVP, Andrew? Who has the biggest game?
Debo 19 Samuel. You can book that right now. I know we got a bunch of big bettors watching this. I'm looking at you, Jack.
real quick, it's Devo Samuel a Hall of Famer? Who knows? Maybe after performance
Who
like
knows?
that.
Who knows?
He won't have the numbers, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on. You dropped some insane knowledge to our viewers. A lot of awesome stuff that we got into. Again, please, if you haven't seen it, go watch our last episode with Jack and Lucas. That was a ton of fun. And then me and Laraib are posting our official picks on Friday on our YouTube channel. So tune in to see who we're rocking in this game. So much stuff to look forward to. And then Sunday will be the Super Bowl. We're going to be putting out a podcast as soon as we can covering it. We'll see how that goes. But again, Andrew, any last words before we head out of here?
Thank y'all for having me.
All right, Laraib, anything else?
I think that's the First and Goal podcast signing off.
Peace.